Good morning. It's 1 minute after 8 o'clock in the morning. Happy Saturday to you. Welcome to the weekend. It is November 16th here in Western Iowa, and probably where you're watching too, unless it's later, like if you're watching it later or on the other side of the international date line. All right, let's check out our weather spotlight. To get things started, I just thought this would be interesting. This is how much snow has fallen so far this year in the United States, the lower 48. And yeah, it's been the West for the most part. A little bit in Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP of Michigan, and then some in the Northeast. But the massive amounts have been in the East, especially eastern Colorado, parts of New Mexico. Crazy, that crazy storm. And so we'll go over where the snow is expected as we move towards Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, it's not quite as much as I had hoped. But we still have a week and a half for things to sort out. All right, here's what's going on with our infrared satellite so far. We have this system here moving through the northern plains and exiting into Canada. A little snow on the backside, though. A little bit of rain here, and we're starting to see our storm. Look at this digging south. The jet stream is getting way down here into Mexico, and again, we're going to see that low form and then eject into the plains. Right now, it's mostly just a few clouds. We had a beautiful sunrise this morning here in western Iowa, and a few clouds to play with as we go through the day in the plains. Pretty clear eastern third of the United States. Let's check out our hazards for today. Not too hazardous out there. We do have a lot of freeze warnings for California. Winter storm watch for the Siskiyous of Northern California into the southern Oregon Cascades. Otherwise, winter storm warnings for the Cascades of Oregon and Washington. Back to winter weather advisories for eastern Washington into northern Idaho and northwestern Montana, and then lots of other parts of Montana, parts of Idaho, into Utah, a little bit of Wyoming, down in New Mexico even. And then we have some wind issues too, some wind advisories here and there, say South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, way down there in far west Texas with a high wind watch, the Guadalupe Pass. They're included in far west Texas. Then we have some fog in Arkansas into Missouri, and then our red flag warning is expanding and persisting in parts of the Northeast. All right, this is going to be fun. This is our upper air winds, and we'll get it started here at the beginning. And so we see our trough in the west just digging deep, and it's going to bottom out as we've been talking about. This has been very consistent on the model runs, just bottoming out here in Mexico, and then this low is going to eject into the plains, and that's going to be a big player in our weather for the next few days. Then we have some cold air coming in behind it right here. That's been pretty consistent as well. Now, what hasn't been consistent is, a couple lobes moving through. For a little while, it looked like it might snow in West Texas. That's starting to look like it won't. And then this low moves into the Great Lakes and just sits here and spins for a few days. And lake effect snow is looking less likely because it's looking not quite as cold, but I think there will be some. And then that low is going to also bring in some cold air into the eastern third of the United States. Then it gets warm again. So as we get into like the Sunday before Thanksgiving, you see this big ridge across much of the country. So it's going to warm back up before Thanksgiving. And then we do it again. We have another low that's moving into the west coast, and it's digging pretty far south into the Four Corners to start December. So that's kind of our pattern as we move forward. That explains everything else we're going to talk about here, which is your current 24-hour temperature change. It's warmer now in the middle of the country than it was yesterday, cooler as that low digs southward into the Four Corners, and so the west is cooler than it was yesterday. Southeast is cooler than yesterday. The Great Lakes cooler than yesterday, but warmer than yesterday into the Northeast. I did want to go through the GFS really fast. Is that possible? Have I ever done the GFS really fast? But maybe. All right, starting out this morning, we see our low bottoming out here in Mexico, and that low is going to form. This gets us into noon tomorrow, Central Time, and we see our showers and storms in our cold front with maybe even some tornadoes there. We'll go over that in here in a second. This low lifts into the plains, heavy rain with it. And then as it gets into the upper Midwest, some of the cold air wrapping in enough for some snow for Minnesota. This was Tuesday morning. And some snow back here in Colorado, but not far enough south for you, West Texas. Although the Panhandle, maybe some light snow. As that low now moves into, moves into the Great Lakes. And then around, so there we go. Look at that. Getting strong, very strong winds, and some snow in the Ohio Valley, Indiana, Illinois. This is the 21st in the morning. That would be Thursday, and then some snow spreading into New England. We do see some lake effect snow here off of Superior, but it's mostly rain for the rest of the Great Lakes as we get into Friday. And we're still seeing some more snow off of Superior, but not off of Michigan like we were yesterday. So the lake effect snow, that looks like that has been lessened until we get into Sunday. So a week from tomorrow, looks like we start to turn on those lake effect jets off of Huron and maybe Erie later on. And we see that warm up with a little bit of a low, maybe some light rain for Iowa. And that gets kind of beyond our area of certainty. But we do see that cold air coming in by the end of the month. And to start December, will it snow in West Texas? It might. We'll keep you posted for sure. All right, we did the 24-hour temperature change. This is the difference in temperature since yesterday. Our surface for today shows that low starting to form in New Mexico, cooler in Arizona today, and will be getting cooler in New Mexico. We see snow in Utah, Colorado, even northern Arizona, Wyoming, Montana, up into Idaho. Heavy snow possible northern Idaho into Washington. Maybe some freezing rain for eastern Oregon could happen. Otherwise, it's rain for the Pacific Northwest. How odd for them. Little patch of possible freezing rain up there in Maine as well. So your temperature anomalies this afternoon were much above average through much of the plains, and then a little bit above average for the east and well below average moving into the west and Four Corners as that low dives southward. Those highs 40s mostly, some 30s in the west, even cooling off. Phoenix, a high only of 61 today, 58 for Tucson. You get the idea. But still warm temperatures in the plains, especially the southern plains, upper 70s today in West Texas. But 60s by the time you get to Kansas, 50s here in Iowa into Minnesota, and then 50s through the Ohio Valley. 60s, though, when you get down to, say, Tennessee. Some 70s for the southeast, 60s mid-Atlantic, 50s and 40s for the northeast, where it'll be a cold start tomorrow morning, as you could imagine. And the west getting cold as well tomorrow morning, but still mild for West Texas, mid-50s to start the day on your Sunday. It'll be 40s here in Iowa, for example. We should be below freezing this time of year. And then, the coolest spot I think I already talked about is New England. Surface tomorrow as that low really strengthens in the Four Corners, particularly New Mexico, West Texas. That's where the action is going to be. Heavy rainfall, Texas into Oklahoma. Severe weather possible for Texas. Snow on the backside in New Mexico. Showers and thunderstorms expanding into the plains as we go later in the day tomorrow. For the Pacific Northwest, another system moving in. Heavy snow for the Cascades. Maybe even some freezing rain mixing in with the heavy snow. Oregon, eastern Oregon into Idaho, and also northwestern Montana. Some rain up there in the Great Lakes. Severe tomorrow, yes, Texas. So just west of Dallas-Fort Worth, just south and east of Lubbock, Texas, all the way down to, say, Del Rio. That's your yellow, slight risk mineral wells included in that. Zooming in and taking a look at the tornado threat. Yeah, mineral wells to just east and south of Lubbock, down to the Big Bend, is where we see our 2% chance of tornadoes. So there might be a tornado or two tomorrow. So, pay attention to the weather. if you're around that area. Highs tomorrow, still pretty warm. Cooling off a little bit in Texas, with that rain and stuff. And we do see 70s still for East Texas and even 80s South Texas. 70s Southeast, 60s Ohio Valley, 50s and 40s for the Northeast. 50s mostly for the upper Midwest and Northern Plains. Some 40s though when you get up there in North Dakota. And of course, cool in the West. 58 for a high. Is that an 8? Yeah, 58 for a high for Tucson tomorrow. So cool down there in southern Arizona. 48-hour precipitation is going to be a lot for Texas into Oklahoma. 2, maybe 3 inches here. You get in the purples, you're talking an inch or 2. Also for the Pacific Northwest, the precipitation is heavy along the coast and heavy in the Cascades. Lightens up as you moved inland. Now, a lot of that's falling as snow, of course, in the upper elevations. But you can see the Cascades getting 2-3 feet, especially up there in northern Washington. And even the mountains of Idaho into Montana, could see a couple feet of snow. A little less as you get down towards Yellowstone. We're talking half a foot or so still. Decent snow up there for Monday as we take a look at your forecast. The low making progress east and north into the plains. So widespread rain through the plains and upper Midwest and getting into the Great Lakes. That'll be more thunderstormy for, say, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana. And severe weather possible now for Dallas to Oklahoma City. And too far out to give you a tornado threat here, but I would say pay attention to the weather as we go. Snow as you get further west, even in the plains and the northern plains, and a lot of snow for the Pacific Northwest, especially inland, and especially for the Cascades and Siskiyous with the heavy snow here. Anomalous temperatures for Monday, starting to get more below average for parts of the southern plains now into the central plains. But the cool air not yet to the northern plains or upper Midwest, where we stay much above average, I would say, much above average for Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, even all the way to the East Coast. Highs on Monday, 80s for Louisiana, 80s for the Texas Gulf Coast and down to southern Texas. So quite warm here. 60s expanding all the way into Iowa, Missouri, Illinois. 50s as you get into the Ohio Valley and even for the Great Lakes, much of the Great Lakes, but dropping off those temperatures in northern New England. And we're talking 70s in the mid-Atlantic into the southeast as well. A few 80s there down in Florida. Cool in the west where that next storm system moving in. 40s for the Willamette Valley and cooler with elevation and interior as well. Boise, 41. Still waiting for some snow there, but all the mountains and hills around Boise are covered. Highs on Tuesday, a little cooler west, a little warmer, expanding into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. Wednesday, we're starting to see some of that cool air press in now behind our system as that storm gets going into the Great Lakes. And so the northern plains into the Midwest starting to cool off even the central plains here. 40s for Iowa becomes 40s and 30s for Iowa as we get into Thursday. Gusty winds too, so our feels like is going to be lower. Lots of 30s up there, upper Midwest, Great Lakes. Again, as that system gets going, even the 30s dipping down now into Kentucky. 40s for Tennessee, again with a brisk north breeze. Friday, that cold air around the Great Lakes, lots of 30s here. And 30s for most of Iowa, 40 for Des Moines. With a brisk, the north wind will be relaxing a little bit, but this is where the cold air is coming into that system around the Great Lakes. So that's where the coldest air is, but cooling off quite a bit for the southeast, 48 for Nashville. And then we get into Saturday. Temperature starting to moderate now, especially in the plains. Remember we showed you on the upper air, we have, as that system in the Great Lakes starts to exit, we've got warm air moving into the center of the country, and here you see it next Saturday, so a week from today. It's going to be warm in the center and cool in the northwest and the northeast, warming back up in southern Arizona. And then Sunday, we see even more warmth moving, say, into the southeast with mid 70s for Louisiana, much of Texas, 70s even into Oklahoma, 60s all the way up into Nebraska and South Dakota. But some lingering coolness for the Ohio Valley and for the Northeast. All right, 8 to 14 day temperatures. That's why we see these above average temperatures, because yes, it's going to cool off briefly, but then it's going to warm right back up for the middle up part of the country. Although near average where I live here in Iowa, because we're going to bounce back and we're going to be below average and above average, and it averages out to average. Below average for the southeast mid-Atlantic, and for, say, Florida, precipitation-wise, yeah, this series of storms moving into the northwest, this is going to be a lot of precipitation for, all of those northwest states, Oregon, Washington, into Idaho and Montana, even a little bit of Wyoming and Utah, then certainly Nevada and California. That's where the most precipitation is likely. A lot of snow for the northern half of Alaska, and looks like above average rainfall for Hawaii. All right, here comes your Thanksgiving forecast. So this is moderated quite a bit. Not as cool as the runs we're saying earlier in the week, and not as much snow either. That's the next map. But so highs, let's say here where I live in Iowa, highs will be in the 40s. That's about normal for this time of year. 60s when you get down into Kansas and Oklahoma, West Texas, but 70s and 80s for Texas, 70s Louisiana and across Mississippi, but back into the 60s for the rest of the Southeast, except, Florida, 70s. 57 for Nashville, so 50s for a lot of Tennessee into Kentucky, and then 40s when you get back up into the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, and some 30s for the Northeast. And the coolest, the Pacific Northwest, 40s along the coast, 30s, of course, inland and with elevation. Even Central California on the cool side, 56 there for, I think that's Sacramento. So, yeah, a little bit cool. And then even southern Arizona, low 70s. That's about perfect for most people. That's why people go to southern Arizona for the winter. And your Thanksgiving, snow on the ground at noon. This is a little depressing if you're a snow lover. Not a lot. A little bit in the Northeast and a lot in the Northwest, and not much in between. All right, that's your forecast through next weekend. And then a quick look at Thanksgiving. And of course, we'll keep you posted as we get closer. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Weather Mike. Have a great weekend. We might see you tomorrow for sure on Monday.